Hello YouTube knife lovers, this old sword coming back at ya. And we've got an unboxing today, something new from my local gun store. So got a good price on it there too. This guy tends to do some heavy discounts on his knives, so not bad, not bad. Discuss that later. Let's take a look. It is a light box. And you can see we might have an auto in the house. Automatic, that is. Your typical Benchmade silk-like pouch. The warranty, a little foam insert in the box. And here we have the relatively new, announced this year at the SHOT Show, I believe, Mediator. This one is a 50-50, partially serrated. Wasn't my first choice. That's what they had. Funny thing is that years ago I would not buy a knife without part serrations on it. Then I think it became kind of a cosmetic thing. Some people would say, well, a smooth edge is better. You get a smooth edge sharp enough, it'll do the same thing as serrated, etc. Well, I'm in agreement on this. It doesn't make the blade look pretty or prettier, but if you are law enforcement, tactical operator, army, military, somebody that uses this knife and keeps it close to them, and you've got to cut through stuff like nylon rope, strapping, plastic perhaps, plastic sheeting, plastic jugs, whatever. The serrated portion of that blade is going to have way more bite than the smooth edge, even though this edge is actually very sharp out of the box. So what do we have? Well, let me bring out a companion, the 4400 Casbah. And what I contend is that they are more or less using the same action as on the Casbah. And there are several other knives that I believe share the same action. You got a little smaller safety on the Mediator, got a little larger one, and they are both metal, the safeties that is. Buttons are metal. Little smaller button on the Mediator, a little bit larger on the Casbah. The Casbah handle's a little taller. The blade's a little taller, different configuration, etc. But didn't bring this out so we can do a direct comparison. But pivot pin's a little larger on the Mediator, a little smaller on the Casbah. So there are some differences, but I believe they build this knife on a similar, if not identical, mechanism. The push-button auto mechanism, which is a plunge lock, essentially. If you saw my review on the Hogues, then you would see that the way this works is that we have a spring-loaded button that fits into the groove on the blade, and there you'll see some bronze phosphor washers in there. This is not a bearing driven pivot, but snappy little knife. Let's see what we got for measurements. And back out just a little bit first. So We have a 7 3/4 inch point to tail. We have a 3 1/4 inch blade, pretty much. We have a cutting edge of about 3 1/8, if you include that last serration. And we have, I gotta go get my caliper. We got a blade thickness in millimeters. Thin, 2.9. Shall we call it 3? Suppose we can call it 3. We have a handle width, thickness of 0.49. Yeah, we'll call it 0.49. So under the magic half-inch mark by just a skosh. We have a weight of 2.795. I'm going to call it 2.8 ounces. So a very light knife for a medium, sort of full-size blade. Taking a closer look, we've got the butterfly Benchmade emblem on there. I was buying butterfly or balisong knives from them back in the early to mid 80s when the balisong was a thing, so along with the tanto. And they had just come out, and it was all the rage, and everybody was flipping the balisongs around. And I was able to get pretty much what amounts to a custom balisong for the price of what your lower-end Benchmade balisongs are going for today. Wish I'd kept them. I'd have a hell of a collection. Anyway, jumping off of that, and I knew Les Diasis by name and could pick up the phone, call him up, and order a custom balisong. That's when they had a small shop in Burbank, California, before they moved up to Oregon. By the way, Les pretty much lost his shirt when they farmed out work in the, I think, early 90s to Japan. And we had the issue with the yen against the dollar, and the man was in very dire straits financially. I'm so glad that they pulled it out, and a lot of people don't realize that. Man was certainly not always rich by any means. Now they're one of the biggest cutlery companies in the world. Nice feature of this blade is they went with a quality steel. So we have S90V. See if I can get a little better sharpness on that. S90V. And the Benchmade.com URL. All the screws here are recessed. They're dome screws, but they are well under the surface. We have what they call a short deep carry clip. I love it. Same clip as you're going to see on the bug outs. It's tall enough to where the use of the domed head screws doesn't really get in the way in the pocket. If you have a bug out, it pockets just as well as the bug out or that family of knives. Got just a teeny bit sticking out of the end here. We've got a lanyard hole. And we have what some will say is a reverse tanto blade design, reminiscent of Osborne. So even looking at the handle on this, kind of reminiscent of the Osborne 940 and the new 44, 9400. They always add a couple zeros or 1 0 when they make it an automatic. What else? As I said, a pretty good size pivot with a surround. Not sure if that is the full diameter of the pivot or not. I haven't broken this down, nor do I intend to. I tend not to play with automatics. Some people can take them apart and put them back together. I don't want to risk it. We have a 3D milled G10 handle. I really like knives with G10. I've got my share of titanium and aluminum. Aluminum's probably the one I don't like the most, or like the least, however you want to characterize that. Besides being cold to the hand in cold weather, the anodizing they put on there and the kind of chalkiness of it just doesn't feel good in the hand. This has got enough traction. And speaking of traction, there is no jimping on the blade, but they chose instead to put some very aggressive jimping in the liners right here, and your thumb doesn't really go anywhere. If you want to get farther forward, well, you're kind of out of luck as far as jimping goes. It fills the hand nicely. It's not a large knife. They sell this as a lighter weight tactical knife that can do most of the work of the heavy-duty autos and folders that they make for in the black class. Black box, black class, yep. And we'll take another quick look at the Casbah alongside of it. Every bit as nice a knife. Just that the Mediator's got a little more of that tactical look. This has more of kind of an outdoorsy EDC. You could use it outdoors, whittling, skinning, hunting, what have you. This one, however, has a Zytel handle, better known as FRN, fiberglass reinforced nylon. Has a nice texture on the side. And overall is just a little more real estate there for your hand. G10 and FRN. Speaking of size, let's take a look at it alongside some other Benchmades. Here we have the Freak. Freak's a larger knife by a good measure. We have the Griptilian, a little smaller, more in keeping with the same size, although I would say the Griptilian's got about a ½ inch longer handle, and the blades are comparable. And finally, the big boy, the Rat 1. Pivot to pivot, we have about a ½ inch longer blade, about almost an inch longer handle, let's see. Take that back, about 3/4 of an inch. So if you can carry an auto in your state, and I can't here, by the way, but I do collect them, and use them at my discretion, then you may not be interested in this. It's just a novelty, another review to look at for maybe a knife you don't have. If you do have it, then you're most likely enjoying it, either outdoors, indoors, wherever. Hopefully, state I live in, I do hope that eventually they roll back some of those antiquated knife laws. We got organizations like Knife Rights working on that, and they're having some very good successes. So, there's an auto review for you. I may put out 1 or 2 more auto reviews. And Perhaps they'll be informative for you. It's a switchable clip. You're looking at holes on the left side, so you lefties are in good shape. All right, This Old Sword signing out. Hope you enjoyed that. Give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe.